is Krista Caldwell, and I'm a Global Mobility Manager based out of Denver, Colorado. And I chaired the GMJ Congress because this is a very important topic to me, and the fact that it took place on International Women's Day was really critical. I've noticed firsthand how a diverse mobility program can have successful outcomes for both companies, projects, and individuals. So I was really excited to share my experiences, but more importantly, hear about everything that all of our GMJ ambassadors are doing in this mobility space to improve the DEI profiles of their programs.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, based in Zurich, and it was a pleasure to chair the session, the GMJ session, for a second time, invited by Andy. It's always a pleasure to connect with our colleagues from all around the world, especially when we are discussing topics as important as unconscious bias within the world of global mobility. I mean, D&I is on top of the agenda of many organizations around the world, and diversity, inclusion, and equitable treatment of women is at the forefront of those topics as well. Having the opportunity to discuss with colleagues about subjects touching the global mobility aspects, touching women in particular, is really important for us in order to ensure that our program remain relevant to the business and to topics that is at the forefront of every major organization.
Hi, I'm Jen Ignat. I'm based in Seoul, and it was a pleasure for me to chair this GMJ Congress this past month for International Women's Day. One day out of many that we can join together to celebrate the wonderful contributions of women. Really, every day should be International Women's Day, but it was exciting to come together with my global mobility colleagues and peers from around the world to talk about diversity and inclusion and unconscious bias in particular. I think we've made a lot of progress as a society in these topics, and HR, especially in global mobility, is right at the forefront of helping to enable diverse organizations. But we have to continue to have these conversations and to push the bar to expect even more and to hold ourselves accountable. So I think we're just getting started, honestly, on this conversation. We've made a ton of progress, but there's still a lot of work to do. And it was a pleasure to have that conversation with many of my colleagues on that day. And I look forward to continuing to talk about this important topic.
Hi, I'm Chris Crosby from Country Navigator. I'm based in London, and we were delighted to support the Congress this year. Country Navigator is fully committed to learning and development across a wide range of topic areas around cultural intelligence. And we are increasingly looking forward to supporting mobility, talent, and DE&I as they continue to align around this important subject.
Yes, so Russell Harlow from Country Navigator. I've been in the field of cross-cultural communication and leadership for 33 years. Still fascinated by the connection between human biases and culture. And it was a great opportunity for me to learn more about a topic very close to my heart and listen to other people's experiences and perceptions.
I thoroughly enjoyed the GMJ Congress this session. It was a lively and engaging discussion, and so many critical points were raised. It was really important to have this session on International Women's Day, as it brought an added element of importance to the topic, and it's been a really great way to see how far all of us have come in this space.
I thought it was very insightful and really sort of thought-provoking. And a lot of that was to do, I think, with the enthusiasm and the passion for from the attendees about the topic. So it really made me think about different perspectives on a subject that I've been around for quite some time.
So I love attending the GMJ Congresses because this is an opportunity for global mobility leaders and professionals from all over the world to come together. And we work in many different industries. We have different experiences, but it's an HR-only event in general. We have some, sponsors from other organizations that will sometimes join, like Chris. But it's an opportunity for us to speak in a closed-door setting about different issues we're having, different ideas we have, to test it with each other and hear other expertise that's in the room. There's so much expertise in the room. And we've been through many of the same challenges, and some of them we're still working on. So I love the way we have this session where, Jennifer and I had the opportunity to get the conversation started with Heather and Chris together. But then we wanted to hear from everyone in the room and their unique perspectives and ideas and challenges. And I feel like it's a really open environment, a safe environment to share really anything that's on your mind. So we did have a topic, which was important and interesting, but sometimes we go off on a tangent, which is kind of fun as well. And so a lot of relationships are actually built in these congresses that carry on outside, of the meetings, and we have follow-up meetings and virtual coffees and things like that to continue the conversation. So it's a really great opportunity for all of us.
I couldn't agree more with what Jen just mentioned. Really, the diversity of the attendees, the participation level, the free flow of ideas that were being exchanged, the easy chat among all of us really make it for an easy exchange and learning from each other. So really happy that I came back for a second time to participate into a GMJ conference.
What attracted Country Navigator to the Congress event generally was the mix of participants, the level of authority on the subject of global mobility, and the actual event itself didn't disappoint in that regard at all. I think the overall contribution was at a very high level. The mix of participants lived up to expectations. We had a great breadth of contributions from people in different parts of the world, and getting those international perspectives is always so rich and rewarding. So I think as a forum and a network, it certainly met our expectations and probably exceeded them. This is the second International Women's Day we participated on with a public event. It's increasing for our across our organisation, across our business, across the people that we work with, our clients, our facilitator base. This is now a key event annually for us. The subject of unconscious bias is center stage for so much of the work that we do around cultural intelligence, the alignment between cultural intelligence and unconscious bias, and developing the collaborative skills associated with that is now a key part of our curriculum, and very much what we're hearing from clients at the moment. It's a central theme for many organizations.
The topic of International Women's Day and unconscious bias is something that I think we've all talked about in our mobility programs over the years, but previously didn't really have the ability to take tangible actions. So talking about this with the GMJ Congress and all the ambassadors was such a great way to see how much progress we're making and the tangible actions that each of our ambassadors are taking within their programs and their companies to really break the biases that we're seeing in a lot of these industries. Companies are more receptive to this topic nowadays, and so it's really up to each of us to continue pushing forward and looking for unique and creative ways to enhance the DE&I profiles of our mobility programs.
I think selecting the topic of unconscious bias for International Women's Day was really relevant, particularly, I think, in 2022, because during the pandemic, what we've seen is a lot more inclusive and also non-inclusive behaviors have emerged because people were forced to work remotely, to work in hybrid teams, and often the lack of a physical connection and physical proximity has really caused this whole area of personal identity and bias to come to the surface again. So I think it was very timely to couple the two things together.
The topic is definitely relevant, as we mentioned before, and as also being mentioned by my colleagues here with regards to how it is present in everything that we do at the workplace, but even more than that, into the space of global mobility. I think we truly believe that via global mobility, at least in Mondelez as an organization, we use it as a platform to really create equal opportunities for everyone, regardless of their background, which is gender, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and give them those opportunities to create the diversified workforce that we aim for. And with that meaning, we move people, irrespective of who they are, around the world from many backgrounds and cultures. But what comes with that degree of diversity is sometimes we are not conscious of the differences and the elements that could create issues in terms of how we present our program, of how we deal with our employees and our colleagues. So it was really important for that day to think about it, to think about unconscious bias into the world of global mobility, to discuss, to create ideas, to listen from our peers in terms of what they are doing into that space. What can we do better? Because it's really a journey of improvement, self-improvement, the program improvement, and really going towards a space where we are really not afraid to stand up for our program, really encourage to bring it to the next level and to help to overthrow any unconscious bias that may exist and further increase connections through the global mobility program around us.
I think often when we start talking about diversity and inclusion, it can be a little overwhelming. And I think it's helpful. Sometimes it's appropriate to zoom out and take the big picture point of view for sure. But what I really liked about this Congress is that we zoomed in a little bit and focused specifically on unconscious bias and global mobility. This is an important topic, and one of the things we agreed upon as a group is that unconscious bias is natural. It's biological. Everyone has it, but it's recognizing it and recognizing it when it's happening in the work environment or your personal environment, and making thoughtful, deliberate changes to how you can overcome it or minimize it as much as possible. In the HR world and in the organizations that we support, it's important to also think about how we can put different checks and balances in place to ensure that we are treating people, fairly, equitably, equally across genders, across nationalities, ages, all sorts of things. So we really dove deep on this topic as a group. And had, some really interesting takeaways where I think we can go back to our organizations and start to think of things we can implement, both, on the small scale and then on larger scales as we think of our entire D&I strategy. So it was a really timely topic. We could probably talk about it, a little bit at every session, honestly.
So I think the takeaway for me from this GMJ Congress is that pushing forward with DE&I and our mobility programs is really an ongoing process, and it's not something that we can change overnight, but there are actions we can tangibly take every day to make a difference within our programs and within our workplaces. And we must continue to talk about it and share our experiences and really elevate those who have pushed forward and made progress in this space. Listening
to the comments and perspectives of people from the breakout groups that we had, people who are much more experienced in global mobility than me, I had really underestimated the connection between global mobility and bias and gender diversity as well. From, are the processes that our company is using, are they exacerbating the situation of personal biases, all the way down to more tangible things like local recruiting, giving performance feedback in a different cultural environment. I'd really underestimated that. So I found it very powerful when the groups came back from breakout for them to pinpoint some of those areas that would not have been on my radar screen.
One takeaway that I will take from all the discussions that we had during the Congress is be bold and proud of what you can do, and do not be afraid to undertake activities that's going to help to break down unconscious bias. We are all at different stage of the journey, but there is no right or wrong of where you are into that, as long as there's progress to be made.
So I had a lot of takeaways. This sense of community, again, of coming together, like Jennifer said, we're on a journey. And so I think the important thing for global mobility leaders and professionals to think about, I think, is really look honestly at where you are in the journey and prioritize. This is important work. It's not going to get done overnight. We have a lot to do. We're, again, at different stages, and that's totally okay. But you have to start somewhere. And there's no better time than now, honestly. So that was probably my biggest takeaway.
Probably my biggest takeaway really was, I think, the sense of a meeting of minds across all of the delegates and the contributions we had. I thought that was really stimulating, in fact, motivating. I think there's a general understanding that bias is a part of all of us. It's part of the human condition, and I think the commitment to support people in their organisations to recognise that, to learn with that and cope with that, came through very strongly, and I thought it was a very empowering place from my perspective in terms of where the conference ended up. So really the key point for me was the meeting of minds and that commitment to want to support people across their organisations.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Thanks very much. See you next time.
See you next time.
Look forward to seeing you all next time.
See you next time.